Hi everybody. Thank you, Chris, for that opening music today. That's pretty good. Felt like I needed to be in a hurry. So it's Saturday, it's our baking show. Today we're making peanut butter chocolate chunk cookies. You can also say peanut butter chocolate chip cookies. It depends on what you have on hand. I'm going to be doing chocolate chunk. This is an Allrecipes recipe. And I have the ingredients on Facebook and I'll post everything later. So first, what I wanted to talk about, which I realized I haven't yet, every week we start the show and you see I have everything out, already measured, ready to go. And what this is called is mise en place. I learned that in school and you may hear it on some television shows from time to time. So mise en place is a French term that means everything in place or putting together. And so that's what we have. Everything that we have and what we need today is put together, ready to go. So you can use a fancy French term sometime with your friends about putting everything together for your baking or your cooking, whatever you're doing in your kitchen. So what we're going to start with first, I'll go over the ingredients, what I have measured out on mise en place. And then I'm going to go ahead and go over chopping the chocolate, because I realized a couple episodes back I did it, but I kind of did it a little quickly. So I wanted to go over a little bit today. So for this recipe, we're going to be using 1 stick of unsalted butter. This is room temperature. It's been out since this morning, so it's nice and soft. This is a cup of packed brown sugar. I'm using light brown sugar. If all you had on hand was dark, you can use dark. It's going to give it a little bit of a more rich flavor, but that's fine. This is a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. We have a 1/2 cup of creamy peanut butter. If you had chunky peanut butter, you could use that as well, whatever you have on hand. We have 2 large eggs, and these are also room temperature. In here, which is hard to kind of see, but this is corn syrup. This is 2 tablespoons of corn syrup, and this is just light corn syrup. In here we have 2 tablespoons of water, and then in here we have, let me just double check, we have 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And one thing about vanilla extract, sometimes you can get vanilla flavoring over vanilla extract, and there's a big difference. I personally will never ever use flavoring. It's watered down and there's other different chemicals in it. The vanilla extract is pure vanilla from vanilla beans. Extract does have a little bit of an alcohol added to it, but the flavor that you get with an extract over a flavoring is 100 times better. And it's more original, because a flavoring is, there's things added to it to make it taste like something.
Additives.
Thank you. So that's just a little tidbit. So our dry ingredients today are going to be 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I have, this is my baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and I'm going to go ahead and just put my dry ingredients together. And then this is a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And as I've said before, we're just going to take a whisk and get our dry ingredients whisked together so that we get all the lumps out. And then that will be ready to go. And now this recipe calls for 2 cups of chocolate chips or 2 cups of chocolate chunks. And the difference is, using chocolate chunks, you're going to get a different melting in your cookie. I prefer the chocolate chunks because you get the chocolate really kind of melted throughout the cookie, whereas you'll notice whenever you have a chocolate chip, that chip pretty much just stays its shape. It will melt, but it doesn't kind of get gooey within the cookie. And there's nothing wrong with either one. Chocolate chips have different additives, as Chris had said, or ingredients that help it keep that shape. Whereas if we're just chopping chocolate, it's gonna just kind of melt all over, and I prefer that. So I've already done 1 cup, and I just wanted to go over a little bit a proper way to chop your chocolate. And I'm gonna point out that I had a couple extra pieces of chocolate that I'm just gonna throw in as extra, because otherwise when will I use them? Today I'm using the Ghirardelli semi-sweet baking bar. This is a 4-ounce package, and so 2 packages of 4 ounces will equal your 2 cups. It doesn't make sense because they're each 4 ounces, so technically you would think 16 ounces would be your 2 cups, because 8 ounces equals a cup. Am I confusing anybody yet? Yes. So, but the way it works out once you chop it, because it's a different type of measurement, this is a cup. Whereas if it was liquid, you would have 2 8 ounces. Does it make sense? Sorta? I don't know. I won't confuse you anymore. Okay, so getting into chopping the chocolate, we have our wet paper towel that I've mentioned before underneath our cutting board, because this helps keep it in place so it doesn't slide all over the place. I have my 1 bar of chocolate on here. I can just add these other pieces on here. And so I have a chef's knife. If you don't have a chef's knife, whatever knife you have that you feel comfortable using, and let's say you don't have, you can break these into pieces and just chop them each individual if you don't feel necessarily as comfortable using a whole piece. Whatever whatever your comfort level is, because you are using a large knife and you don't want to hurt yourself. So what you always want to do is, whenever you're chopping something like this, is you want to hold your hand flat. See how I'm holding it like this? Because you're kind of covering your knife. You don't want to just kind of go like this. That's dangerous. So you always want to have control of your knife when you're chopping something. And so you'll see I'm just going down, always keeping my hand on top, and I'm just going through. And it's not like it's really soft, so you do have to put some pressure. And you can see I'm using a rocking motion. So I start at this end, and I'm going down to the back. And so it's not like I'm rocking very, fast, but I am going down from the front into the back. And you see my hand is always on top of my knife. It's always keeping this part of my knife stable. And it's very important because it's dangerous. You don't want to hurt yourself. And I've been in kitchens where people get hurt. My instructor in school went to pick up a knife that was sitting in a kitchen cooler, and it fell and it went right through her foot, and was sticking straight up like this in her foot. So you just always want to be careful. So now we see we went this way. Now we're going to come across this way to make our chunks. Again, my hand is flat on top, and I'm doing the rocking motion, and you're just making, they don't have to be exact, just little bits. And again, you see you go from one side to the other. And there you go. And I just kind of get the rest of that chocolate off. And you'll see it's pretty even. You have some bigger ones, you have some tiny ones, that's all good. And all the little crumb pieces, make sure you put those in there too. So that's our little demonstration on how to chop chocolate properly. Alright, so let's get mixing. So we're going to add in our butter to our mixer. You could also use a handheld mixer if you don't have a stand mixer. You can do this by hand, I'm sure. You're just going to be putting a little bit more elbow grease into it. So So that's our stick of butter. I'm gonna break that up just a bit, so it's not one big clump. And then our sugars, and then our peanut butter. And I don't use Jif, any like heavily sweetened peanut butter with any of my recipes. We currently usually get the Skippy Natural, so the sugar content is a lot lower than if you were to get like a Jif peanut butter. And the reason why I always use this type of peanut butter, again, because it can affect the way your cookies taste. If you only have Jif, that's fine. Again, whatever you have on hand. I'm just saying as a rule of thumb for myself, whenever I try to, or whenever I'm making something, again with the unsalted butter, so that I can control the salt content, using something that's lower in sugar in your peanut butter so that your sugar content is a little bit more controlled than having it very, very sweet. So it's just something to think about. Okay. So, sorry, I'm always backwards on here. So we're gonna get this stirred. And what you're looking for is for everything to be well combined. It takes usually a minute to 2 minutes sometimes less, depending on how soft your butter is. If you forgot to take your butter out and it's rock solid, I might suggest working the butter a little bit first before you add all your sugars and your peanut butter, just to kind of break it down so you don't have as many chunks.
John Wolf goes, ooh, Jif.
Jif.
I think he was like, ooh.
Like ew, Jif, or ooh, Jif?
E-W-W.
Oh, ew. Okay. Yeah, Jif has a lot of sugar.
Choosy moms choose Jif.
Not so much anymore. I wouldn't think anyway.
That vermicelli was full of crap.
Right. So I'm going to stop this at this point. I'm going to scrape down our bowl. Always important to scrape down your bowl. And again, with your KitchenAid, you want to make sure you get in the bottom there. And you see on your spatula, don't forget that too, because you're leaving a lot on there. It doesn't have to be all of it. I just like to get a good amount off so that I can make sure it's incorporated well. And so you see it's kind of come to a lighter consistency in the color. It looks pretty smooth. So at this point I'm going to start to add my eggs one at a time. Sometimes you can add an egg and it takes forever for the yolk to break. We'll turn it up just a bit, let it get a good mix. Okay, and then we're going to add our corn syrup. And I'm just using a spatula to help get all of it out because it really sticks in there. You may be wondering why corn syrup. These are a chewy peanut butter cookie. So the corn syrup and the water that I'm adding are going to help them stay more chewy than crunchy. And then our vanilla. We're going to do another wipe down or scrape down over our bowl. See how nice and smooth this has become? Okay. Now we're going to add in our dry ingredients. I'm just looking for something to help me. You know, you just keep adding. You don't have to make sure it's all incorporated before you add the next one. You just don't want to add it all at one time and then turn your mixer on and you're going to have a big old mess.
What would happen if you didn't have corn syrup?
Oh. Well, I don't know. Maybe what I can do is look that up for you in the meantime while they're baking and have an answer for you. Because I don't know. I'm sorry.
Was Jen.
Don't know.
She stumped you.
Sorry, my contact is a little dry today, so if you see me winking.
Oh, I thought that was for me.
Alright, so we see everything's mixed. You can kind of see and look at this dough right here, and this looks like a typical cookie dough. And so we're just going to add in our chips on slow, or our chunks, excuse me. Alright.
What happened?
I think a fruit fly. Sorry. We've had some fruit flies lately. Alright. So our dough is mixed. I'm just kind of getting this out of the way. And I should have mentioned earlier, our oven has been preheating to 375. I have my sheet pans here. I have two that I've lined with parchment paper because I'm going to be using a pretty large cookie scoop today. If you don't have a cookie scoop, that's no problem. You can always just use a big spoon, you know, to scoop it out. You could use a little bowl. You could use a measuring cup. Whatever you have on hand is fine. It doesn't have to be perfect, you know. Alright. So we're going to go ahead and scoot that stuff out of the way. I'm going to put my towel down just because it helps keep my bowl a little bit stable. Whoa. See?
Towel didn't work.
Towel did not work. Alright. Get as much off as we can. You can eat the rest of it off the paddle attachment if you like. And I'm just making sure everything's incorporated pretty well. Seems as if. Alright. So we'll go ahead and scoop these out. Now on this size pan with this size scoop, I should be able to get 12 on here. And so when I scoop, I try to be pretty clean with scraping that off and not having like a giant mound. And then, because when you do it like this, you are kind of keeping the control of your sizes. So that does help. And you'll want to keep them separate, just, you know, a couple inches there, because they're going to spread. And see, like here I notice this one's a little too close. Didn't have, I mean, I'm just kind of keeping it so nothing gets spreads together.
Jen loves your whatever you have on hand philosophy.
Well, that's why I'm trying to keep these kind of recipes that aren't too difficult and also have ingredients that most of us do have on hand, or if you're going to get them are relatively inexpensive. So, you know, because even the corn syrup, you can just get the Hill Country Fair that's at RHEB here in Austin. See, and I don't like how close this one is, so I'm going to move these a little bit. And I think you can get the cheap brand of corn syrup for $1, and it will last you quite a long time.
How many cookies is this going to bake
It
at
should,
this size?
At this size, it should make 24. It should make 2 dozen. Now, a lot of times, let's say I was making these for an order when I do parties or that, I usually can make a very small size so that I can get more out of it. Then, I mean, I've made this recipe and made probably 4 or 5 dozen doing the really small size. It's a nice smelling dough too. It's not a lot of peanut butter, but it's just enough. So at this point, we're ready to put them in the oven. But what I'm gonna do today, and because I wanted to go over another ingredient that we haven't talked about yet, is flaked sea salt. You may see a lot of recipes lately, it's all the rage to use sea salt, the flaked sea salt, on any type of cookie, anything that has chocolate in it or caramel, peanut butter. It gives it that nice salty kick to whatever you're making. And so what I'm using today is called Malden sea salt. You can get it at HEB. You can. It's usually on the top shelf right by all the different salts. There's other brands of the flake sea salt. This is just one I've always heard about for years and years. And so what it looks like, I'll put some in my hand. It's flakes of salt. Can you see that pretty good?
Flaked sea salt.
Yes. And
Truth
so,
in advertising.
Truth in advertising for sure. And so all I'm doing is just taking a little bit in my fingers and crunching it in my fingers and putting some on top. Now remember, these cookies are going to spread. So you don't have to, I mean, some people really like salt and they would want to cover the cookie completely. I just like a little bit on the top, and it really enhances your chocolate flavor. And then because these are peanut butter, gives the peanut butter a nice little flavor. But you don't have to use this. This is just something I thought I'd go over with you guys to show you. There's all sorts of little things you can add. This is a little pricey, but you have it for a long time because you saw how much I use. You hardly use any. So what we're gonna do is put these in the oven. Now, let me look at the recipe really quick. This says that they are gonna bake for 12 to 14 minutes. I'm gonna check them first at 11, just to be sure. I may just do the oven light to see where they're at, and we're looking for just, you know, golden around the edges. You don't want it completely golden because then it's gonna be too hard. So what we'll do is put these in, and I'll come back when I'm taking them out. So we'll see you in a bit. Thank you.